All right, I call the regular meeting of the Edina Park Board Tuesday, May 14th to order. Janet, can we do roll call?
Member Halbert?
Here.
Member Jones? Here. Member Gieseke? Here. Member Steele? Here. Member Deeds?
Here.
Member Jacobson? Here. Member Dan Peterson? Here. Member O'Leary?
Here.
All right, the next item is approval of the meeting agenda. Is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
All right, all those in favor, say aye. Opposed? All right, motion passes. Next, we have the adoption of the consent agenda.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. The next item on the agenda is community comment for items not on tonight's agenda. Is there anyone who would like to comment on something not on tonight's agenda? All right. Next, we have reports and recommendations. The first report is the Off-Leash area pilot hockey rink recommendation and public hearing.
Thank you, Kia. I'm going to pass this on to my assistant director, Susan Foss, to make a brief presentation and stand to answer any questions.
Great.
Good evening. Okay, so what we have here is, as Ann said, just a short PowerPoint with some information on the proposed site at Strachauer Park for an off-leash dog area. Just to provide a little bit of background, at the February Park Board meeting, Director Cattry introduced the idea of adding an off-leash area at one of the hockey rinks. At the March Park Board meeting, staff were asked to research really which parks would be a better location if we were to add an off-leash area utilizing the hockey rinks. We also wanted to find a location that was serving residents on the east side of Edina. We currently have the Van Valkenburg off-leash area on the west side. And at the April Park Board meeting, staff recommended Strachauer Park for the pilot seasonal off-leash dog area. And kind of the recommendations for Strachauer were really based on the location of the park, the surface of the rink. For an off-leash dog area, we needed something that was either grass or sand-based as opposed to an asphalt surface. We also looked at the recreational programming. We have a lot of summer playground programs that utilize several of the hockey rinks at many of the parks. We also wanted to find a location that provided adequate parking for if people wanted to drive to and utilize the park. And then also safety. We wanted to make sure that the location that we were looking at, the paths to accessing playground equipment wasn't in a direct path to entering the hockey rink that dogs and owners would be going in and out of. And here I've just kind of reviewed why some of the parks were not recommended. Highlands, we do have a lot of playground programs in the summer that use the rink for a lot of their activities. And also the rink is very close to the warming house, that shelter, where again, kids and dog owners would be in a direct path. And then just the fields are heavily scheduled with some of our athletics. Pamela, again, our recreational staff use with their playground programs, use those rinks for programming. A lot of activity on the fields. We've got the baseball diamonds as well as soccer fields, and parking is limited at Pamela. Cornelia School Park, again, we utilize those rinks for our summer playground programs. And also the parking lot is looking at being renovated this summer, and the proximity of the rink to the programming area. We also looked at Arden Park. Again, we utilize that rink for our playground programs. Parking is very limited too at Arden. Normandale, utilize the rinks for summer programs, limited parking, and the proximity of the rink to our programming. Same with Walnut Ridge. And we also have really no parking. Most of that's done on the street. Weber Park, playground programs use the rink, heavily used park. We have many different sports that utilize some of the fields there. And then we looked at Lewis, but unfortunately the surface of that hockey rink is asphalt-based. So kind of, again, why we chose Strachauer as a recommendation. You know, it's easily accessible and conveniently located on the east side of Edina. It's, I think, easy for people to get to. We don't have any recreational programming during the spring or summer months that utilize that rink. It's an adequate size rink to accommodate dogs and their owners. It's a full size with grass sand surface, and there's adequate parking and pretty easy neighborhood access. Just some of the, I think, logistics to adding this possibly as an additional off-leash area. You know, dogs must be licensed and will be required to purchase an off-leash area permit. And when you do that, the dogs get a collar that must be visible while using the dog park. We will provide signage that clearly states our rules and regulations along with the user etiquette, which is similar to what we have posted at Van Valkenburg, off-leash area. The city would install a gate to enclose the hockey rink to keep, you know, dogs inside the dog area. There's a couple different options for a gate. We could have a wooden gate or just a black vinyl fencing, which both would be easily removable at the end of the season. And then the city would also provide dog waste bags or at least provide a container to encourage bag donations as a courtesy to those dog owners who may forget to bring a bag with them. The next slide is just an aerial map of the park. So you can see on, I'm a bit directionally challenged, but I believe it's the east side, there's an opening, and that's the opening to where dogs and dog owners would be going in and out of. So from the parking lot, if someone parked, or from many of the homes, if they're choosing to walk from their neighborhood home to use that park, you could walk through it and not directly walk by the playground area. And then on this next slide is just a photo that I took of the signs at Van Valkenburg that just reinforce what the rules and regulations are that we provided for our off-leash area in the city. And I did work closely with Tim Hunter, and he felt that these rules were still recommended. He still recommended that these were the rules that we followed. And then this other sign is more of kind of user etiquette for dog owners, things that aren't necessarily written in stone as a rule, but more of your common sense options that we hope all dog owners would follow. And I think we included that too in your packet that lists both the rules and regulations and user etiquette. Any questions? I kind of rushed through that, but.
I have a question. I'm not really familiar with this particular park. How you've got a 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. I think time frame on there. How close is it to surrounding houses and things? My only question is, are those hours a little early and a little late?
Yeah, you know that's a great question. I would say. It's the park is, there are homes directly on the opposite side of the street from the hockey rink. So that might be something that we could look at to determine if we wanted to maybe open it up a little bit later in the morning and then earlier in the evening. Yep.
Because those are the same hours for the other, yeah.
They are, correct, yep.
I don't see anyone at 6 a.m. over there, but.
But again, this area is a little bit closer
Yeah.
to home, so we certainly wouldn't want to
Yeah, it's different. Valkenburg is a great distance away from any homes, really. That was my concern at 6 o'clock. I don't want to hear dogs barking. 10 o'clock's late for kids. I would say 7 to 9 would be more suitable, in my opinion, for hours. And then is there one permit allowing to both sites? So you pay once and you can go to both?
Correct.
Right?
Yep.
Okay.
The permit would allow you access to both Van Valkenburg and Strachauer.
Okay. And then do we, as a city, provide bags now at Van Valkenburg?
We do not. What has, I think, become kind of common practice at Van Valkenburg is people will bring additional bags, and they've just kind of hung on the fence. But we do have, the city currently does have containers that we could use. I think it's a great idea to encourage, users of the parks to bring additional bags, and if it just would look a little bit neater, I think, if we had a container for those bags to be stored in. But currently, we do not provide bags.
All right. Yeah, I would encourage us to be standardized at both sites. So if we do it at one, we should do it at both. Right. Okay.
So let me ask you, has any city park department figured out how to get people to clean up after their dogs? That's a real problem.
Yeah, I don't think anyone has completely figured it out. Unfortunately, really, it's the responsibility of the dog owner. And, I think what our hope is that we can find more of kind of communities that use those areas that can kind of work together and help to enforce some of those rules, because it's just being a responsible dog owner.
I have a question about the etiquette. As you kind of said, they're kind of like, best practices for dog owners. Are they enforceable at all? Or because there's some discussion back and forth at the dog park about, for example, one person has a business where they walk dogs and they'll have several dogs. So can someone complain about that, or where's the line on that?
Yeah, all of the enforcement does fall under the position title is losing me. Our Tim Hunter is animal control. So that department is responsible for enforcing those laws. I think some of the rules of etiquette are challenging to enforce. But I definitely think that the city should be hearing some of those concerns, and we as a city should be addressing them. Does that answer your question, Kia?
Yeah, I think I'd just provide some information on how to register those complaints.
Yep. That's a great suggestion.
This doesn't say it anywhere on the etiquette list, and it might sound obvious, but we probably need to say that people need to pay attention to their dog at all times. It really doesn't say that.
Okay.
And I don't know if we want to say something about don't just talk on your cell phone and don't watch your dog. Cell phone usage rules, or does that matter?
Yeah, I think we can certainly add any suggestions that you have to the rules that have been provided.
Okay.
I mean, I'm assuming Van Valkenburg was our first dog park, and I think we're hoping to improve the system as we go.
I just worry about the confined space. That rules are a lot more important as you get small.
Yeah, I agree.
How many residents did the letter go out to? I'm just trying to gauge in terms of, we got, that looks like 4 or 5 responses back. So how many residents did the letter go out to?
I think it's 472. Homes. And that was a 1,000-mile radius of the park.
1,000 feet,
1,000 feet, corrected.
which would be Cleveland.
Okay, and I have just a couple things. One is, I know the city currently has certain ordinances about dogs, and what those are, I can't even tell you. I think one of them is that everyone is required to carry 2 bags with them. And so if we wanted to, use the signs as educational as well, I would recommend that we state that ordinance on the sign. And also, I do think that we don't need to provide bags at the park. I do think we do need to provide a trash can right there, though. Okay. So I would be in, as far as that, I don't see that on here, but I do think we do need a trash receptacle right at the gate.
Yeah, and that would be something that we would provide inside that gated area, is several receptacles to make it easier for dog users to put the waste bags in the containers.
And then I have another concern, and I just know that dogs can jump, and some dogs jump pretty high. So I'm looking at that. I think it's a 4-foot high fence around. Not quite. It's less than 4. You think it's 3.5? Well, that's one of my concerns. Is if dogs get excited and jump over the edge. And so is there, that would just be an incident that the owner would have to deal with. But I'm concerned because when you jump over the edge of that, you'll be jumping into a playground area.
Yeah. Well, and I think it goes back to, Member Jacobson's, suggestion that we add that dog owners really need to stay close to their dogs and watch them. And again, we're using this. This is a pilot. This would be a pilot. So we're really using it to see what issues do come up. And if we see that is a consistent issue, we can come up with some type of a solution. I'm not sure what that is right now, but maybe to address it.
Right. And so that leads me into the other thought, which is how will we assess whether or not this is successful?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think seeing if people are using it, I think would be one measure to find out if neighbors in that area are walking their dogs to the park and using it. I think we would have to kind of, be mindful of if dog owners are picking up, after their animals. But I think overall, it's seeing if people are using it, finding out if not many people are utilizing the off-leash dog area, then perhaps that's either not the right location or it's something that is not needed in that area of Edina.
And I think I would recommend that that staff develop some type of measurement, some objective measurement that you could go and do periodically through the summer to say,
yeah,
how is this affecting parking, which is one of the big concerns.
Yep.
How much feces is left in that rink? How many holes are being dug into the hockey ground?
Yep.
How many incidents have been reported? If we're going to be putting a sign saying call if you have concerns, how many complaints have been registered for barking dogs? And then at the end of the season, then you can come back to us and say, this is what we've found.
Yep. Yeah, that's a great suggestion. And one thing that I hope that we were able to do this summer, and we will be, is I think to better communicate with the users of our off-leash dog areas, to get suggestions from them, to find out what the real issues are. We have our park maintenance crew that are there to maintain the park, and they get information. People using the park talk to them and tell them what's going on, but I think we need a more formal process where maybe it's emails, maybe we have meetings where we're inviting people in, where we can get more information that will help us, I think, improve those areas and find out if they're working.
Right, and so who would be the staff person that is in charge of this park?
Well, that would be me. I think in the past, Anne it has said, there really hasn't been anyone from the Parks and Rec department that has been directly responsible for the dog parks. It really has fallen under animal control. All we were responsible for was the maintenance. And I think, and I know that we need to improve that, and we need to get a little bit more involved. So that I will be taking an active role in that.
Good. And it's just nice to know that there is one person that then would be saying, they would have ownership and say, if it's filthy, then, okay, obviously you're not going to be picking up feces, but somebody...
Although I'm very good at it. So.
Somebody is, and so that the parks don't look unmaintained. And the other question that I have is, do we normally mow that rink in the summertime?
Well, it's pretty sand-based. I would think if it needs to be mowed, we would. But it's pretty. There's a pretty strong sand bottom, and I don't know if you can add to that.
Ellen, I'm honestly not sure either. But my assessment would be the same as Susan's, is that I don't think there's a need right now.
Yeah, it looks. I went and looked today, and it's pretty sandy, which is great, because I've heard that other communities have problems with dogs digging holes, and so the sand would probably minimize that. But I'm wondering about how it might change and affect the maintenance. So.
I honestly think, other than going through and doing inspections and picking up after people that don't, I don't see any additional maintenance for our team.
David found out for us that only 4 no thank yous out of 475. Where's the support for this coming? Who wants it?
I think Anne received initially earlier in the year several requests for additional off-leash areas. We also received in your packet several other emails, a few other emails in support of an additional off-leash area.
Yeah, and Dan, when I was out there, 2 residents were there with their dogs, and they told me that they were very interested in having it. So yeah, and they, it's interesting. I think they were a little surprised that they might need to write a letter in support, because they thought, well, this is a simple and obvious thing. That was their thinking, is any dog owner would, of course, like this.
And then the Van Valkenburg deal is there for all dogs. There was some thought that we should have, if we do it, we should have an area for smaller dogs away from the big guys. Would this be all dogs again? Is that your thinking?
This would be all dogs. It's really a challenge to be able to enforce, especially in that area, to enforce a weighted, you can't really have a scale out there for a size of the dog. So again, we're going to trust that our dog owners are going to be mindful, and if there are very small dogs and they have large dogs, that they'll keep them close, so we don't have any issues with large dogs versus small dogs.
Do the police, I don't know this, do the police coordinate with you? So if they get a call to the park for various things, do you guys hear about it? Because if with mixing small and large dogs and other things, you may get into some situations where there is some damage done and other things, and given the relative size of this, that's one of the issues that we need to figure out in the pilot project. So if there's not an automatic coordination, I would encourage you to make sure you talk with them and make sure they're not getting calls that you guys aren't hearing about.
Yeah, I don't think currently there probably has been great communication, but yes, we would like to think that we'll work much more closely with them and that we'll have that information.
If there are no other questions, I'm going to open up to the public hearing.
I just have one quick question, another one.
Okay.
The off-leash area permits, those funds don't go into Park and Rec budget, do they?
Correct.
They go to the
Police, yep.
Police. Okay, so I'm just wondering if you could find a way, as this is a pilot project, I'd like to find out what the cost for this project is, And so as we review this at the end of the year, if you could keep a close track of what this is costing us in terms of additional maintenance and additional staff time, et cetera. And then we may be able to say, does it make sense for us to take a percentage of an off-leash area permit fee to go into maintaining this park?
Okay, great. We can certainly do that.
All right. At this time, I'm going to open it up to the public hearing on this item. Is there anyone who would like to come forward and speak to it? Please state your name and address, and you will have 3 minutes to comment.
My name is Winnie Martin. I'm actually a resident in the area of Strakauer Park, and I am in support of the dog parks, and I have been working with Ms. Catre and Ms. Foss trying to help bring this in. I would like to take just a couple of minutes to address some of the questions you all had from a resident standpoint who is using that park every day. First off, the hours, I think that was a great point of maybe the 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. Keep in mind we have hockey players there until 10 or 11 during the winter, which are sometimes louder. As far as the license and the off-leash area fees, there are 2 separate fees. I'd be curious to know if both of those go to or just one, because they're 2 separate. There's a license fee for the pet plus an off-leash fee. I think there's an option to certainly put a portion of that towards Officer Hunter and his patrols. There are a number of residents who use this park right now, and part of the intent of getting the city involved in this is to help with some of the maintenance and some of the control. This park is currently heavily used by non-licensed, unregistered, off-leash area members that do not take care of the park. And I think this will greatly help more neighbors use the park. I think it will keep the park in better shape because there will be more people there that are abiding by the rules and the regulations of an off-leash area. And I think it will provide more of a neighborhood atmosphere which residents can help and watch each other out. I can tell you there are probably 10 to 12 of us over there every day right now that do pick up dog waste, that do pick up trash from various groups and members that are using the park that aren't as perhaps as respectful as they should be. So I'd like to think what we're doing here will actually initiate more of a neighborhood ownership. I know I live there. I take pride in how that park looks. Every day I pick up trash and feces that aren't mine. And I think you'll find there are a lot of residents that will do the same. I would open it up if you all have any questions for a resident who lives there.
No questions.
Okay. And then I guess on the actual 3.5 foot, 4 foot, I believe it is about a 4 foot wood fence, and I'm also directionally challenged, but on both ends, I would say it is chain linked up to prevent the pucks from flying up and over. So there is a higher area of chain link that does go around. And then, you know, when you send out the actual license renewal and license information, it very clearly states in there, you know, all dogs should be under voice control and obedient and not jumping and respectful of others and other dogs. And my hope would be that the people that use this park would abide by all of those rules and regulations. And, you know, if there are 8 big dogs in there, you don't go in with your little dog. If there are 8 little dogs in there, you don't go in with your big dog. So thank you for considering it, and we appreciate your time, especially to you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to comment on this item? All right, I'm not seeing anyone come forward, so I will close the public hearing. Discussion from the park board?
Well, I think she raised the resident here raised a good point that I was going to see if we could request of animal control, and I don't know how this all fits in with the approving this, but I would like in the very beginning to have frequent visits by animal control so that they can be checking for
off-leash area tags and licenses, and just the presence of animal control there would encourage better behavior. And I think sometimes the culture, when it starts, to start a good culture is better than trying to fix it later on.
Ellen, I appreciate those comments, and to your point earlier about the fee, that the revenue that we get from the fees, whether that is the dog license or especially the dog park permits, I don't want to see that go into, I guess, the park budget for maintenance, because I kind of think of the field maintenance item covering that. I mean, that's my own personal view. However, I do want to see 100% of that going towards either the cost of items at the park or enforcement. And I'm not sure that we are getting our money's worth of enforcement in terms of revenue we generate from those users.
I hate to be a Debbie Downer here, but this dog has too many fleas. I'm sorry, I couldn't help myself. Honestly, my problems with it are, one, I think it's too close to homes. We had this come up about 2 to 3 years ago at Creek Valley, and that was, I think, the number one concern. I mean, even for people on this board. I like alternative uses for existing spaces, but I think that those rinks get use in the summer. I know I coached youth soccer for years, and I know Dan did too. That's where we had our practices, was inside of the soccer fields. You didn't have to call the city to schedule it. More often than not, you'd be able to use it, and it was a great place for soccer. I've seen people play cricket, football, and to me, I think that location is just way too close to children, to that parking lot, to that jungle gym. That field for soccer gets used by the city's youngest soccer players in the Edina Soccer Association every weekend. Hundreds of kids are coming in and out of there. There's not a huge parking lot. It's really small. You'd have people crossing over, coming in and out of there. And speaking as somebody that's been bit twice by dogs, you don't plan for that to happen. So I would like to see another dog park, but I think we should have a more substantive conversation about alternative sites, and there are other sites. There's kind of an informal site on 40th and France, on the east side of France, that gets used by a lot of people. It is on the east side of town. It's not that far away, and I don't know when that has come up again with the city of Minneapolis, but I thought John said we were actually getting pretty close to doing something with the city of Minneapolis.
We did have another discussion with the city of Minneapolis and the city of St. Louis Park last summer, and it sounded as if the city of Minneapolis was nearing the point of putting that property up for sale, and they were seeking the interest of our two cities, and we haven't heard anything from them again. So I just spoke with City Manager Scott Neal about this within the last month, and he was going to see if he could find out any more about the city of Minneapolis's interest in selling that property.
There's parking there. It's buffered all the way around by woods. It's nowhere close to homes, jungle gyms, fields, or I've often thought too, if the Golf Dome gets used maybe about 5 months out of the year. In Minneapolis, I think it's by Calhoun, one of their dog parks is like in the woods. I mean, we've got that space there. I don't know if we've ever thought about looking at clearing and putting fencing in the woods under the trees. People get out of the sun. Who uses that parking lot in the summertime at the Golf Dome?
It doesn't get used.
So, I mean, that's what I'd like to, if we're going to really talk about doing this, I mean, I thought this was just brought up by one person or a small group of people. If we're going to do something that's going to be in a neighborhood that affects a lot of people that maybe aren't dog lovers, and there's a lot of kids there, why don't we talk about it and see if we can't get something? I mean, go look at that area in 40th and France. It's a great location. Has anybody here used it before that has a dog? No? I have. So those are my thoughts.
For me, this is a close call. Number one, I think the space is small, although this one looks as a full-size rink is a little bit larger. I guess what I come down to is I'm willing to give it a 1-year experiment, and let's find out whether it works at all or not. But I do want, on the condition, I want serious study. This is an experiment, which means you gather the data. If it doesn't work, it goes away. It's not once started, it hangs around forever. The whole point here is this is a 1-year pilot. Let's see if it works. Let's see if we have any conflicts between the dogs and the people, if there's serious complaints with the neighbors or anything else. If there is, shut it down. It doesn't work. If there isn't, okay, maybe it is a useful second. And if it conflicts with the soccer, let's find out and let's understand that so that we can figure out what the best usage is. But I am willing to give it a year, and I was pretty skeptical going in, so I'm willing to give it 1 year. But that's on the prove it to me kind of basis.
I agree with David. I thought a better location would be Lewis Park, but not the hockey rink. But it'd take money to put in a cyclone fence. There is land near the pond, and land from the pond toward the tennis courts, and parking near the tennis courts, and plenty of parking near the park building. But I'd also be happy to give it a year and see what happens with data collected.
And I agree with David's feeling about the need for really looking into this, having a clear way for us to track whether or not this is successful, and success meaning that it works with the neighborhood. So, and that there are not incidences where dogs are jumping over the fence and interfering with the other uses of the park.
I guess I'm a little bit pessimistic about how it's going to go, but I'm willing to let you guys try it for a summer. I really like the idea of using the Golf Dome area in the summer. I think that's a great dual usage.
Is there a motion?
Move approval.
Can I just ask what we're moving to approve?
I need a second. Robert's rules.
What?
We need a second in order to discuss the motion.
Okay. I second the motion.
Go ahead.
Now can I ask what is the motion?
Okay.
Are we moving? So I guess we actually need I guess what I say is we need a motion.
If that's the case, I move we try Strackhauer Park for 1 year as a pilot. Apparently for all dogs. My preference for our 2 dogs, which are smaller, would be small dogs, but for all dogs. And please collect the data so we can make an intelligent decision in a year whether it should be renewed or tried someplace else.
Okay, I'll second that one.
Right. Is there further discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes. All right. Moving on to the next item on the agenda is the Parks and Recreation Department mission statement. We tabled this at the last meeting, so I moved to remove the item from the table. Is there a second? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, so as you see in the packet, our mission statement that the committee drafted is: we create parks, programs, and facilities to foster a healthy, inclusive community. We accomplish this through creative leadership, collaborations, environmentally sustainable practices, and the responsible use of available resources. Are there any questions?
No, I just want to comment that I thought that I really appreciate the work that the working group did to create this, and and I just was wondering if we could discuss this. Apparently some other people have come up with two recommendations for change, and I don't, I'm wondering if they could talk about that.
I think those are items mentioned at our last meeting. Does anyone feel like discussing those?
I like that alternative on doing parks, facilities, and programs. It kind of seems like a logical progression.
So using the drafted mission statement, but moving facilities before programs?
And the other suggestion, creative management instead of creative leadership. I don't think that our mission is to manage, so I actually think leadership, the way that it was originally proposed, it fits a little bit more with what we do, although I would use the word, if you're looking for a different word, I would maybe consider direction, creative direction, or strategic direction instead of creative. Those would be other suggestions for, instead of creative management, maybe strategic leadership or strategic direction. I'm not really certain that we accomplish this through creative leadership. I'm just not sure if that's part of our mission.
I guess the question is, the question is, what are we trying to communicate to the staff? What are we trying to communicate going forward? I kind of like using the term creative just because it to some degree says we should look beyond just whatever we're doing currently, whatever the traditional is, etc. So having that in there, I think, actually is a little bit positive. We could use innovative, current buzzword in the management literature. So we could do innovative. Everybody's innovative now, but I actually think the use of creative is a little more interesting on that. I am somewhat agnostic between management and leadership. I guess if I had a bias, it'd be towards leadership because I just think it's a little more proactive and a little more empowering. But overall, I like the language with or without the changes. I think I think it's something that's fairly active, that does provide some guidance and should, if made use of, help guide decision making. So it should accomplish the goals.
I also like the word creative just because we should be thinking outside the box for solutions and yeah.
Actually, I think it's particularly, in some ways, I think it's particularly important for Edina because we are a fully built-out city. So in some ways, I think it does require creative process and creative thought going forward to try and do the best we can, given that we are fully built out. So I would encourage us to keep the creative aspect in there.
Are there other suggestions or?
And I agree with David. I like the word leadership a little better than management.
Okay, so I have the only change as being moving facilities in front of programs, so parks, facilities, and programs.
I move we approve it with the change of moving facilities in front of programs and programs after the end.
I second.
I'd like to make I like it either way. I'll just make an argument the other way. because I like the alliteration with the parks and programs and then facilities and foster. Not that that's neither here nor there of importance, but I like the flow that way.
For what it's worth.
Any further discussion? All right, see no discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And the motion passes. All right, we're moving on to correspondence and petitions. First, we have council updates in your packet. Ann has provided council updates.
I'd be happy to answer any questions on the council updates that are in your packet. These are the items that have been taken to City Council at the last 2 City Council meetings since our last meeting.
I bet you know what I'm going to ask you. They ignoring the sports dome?
No, actually, I had that to talk about in my staff comments. But you will be hearing a recommendation from me at your June Park Board meeting regarding the sports dome and athletic fields.
Any other questions? All right, the next item is the Veterans Memorial Committee. That's also in your packet. And any comments on that? Okay. All right. Next, we'll move on to chair and board member comments. Our subcommittee on strategic planning will continue to meet. Kathy and I did a little bit of brainstorming one morning this past month, and we'll continue to meet with David and Joseph and bring something forward soon. So,
I'd like to, we're in comments, right? Yeah. So I'd like to make a comment. I want to point out that this season points out the desperate need for better playing fields around this town. The baseball, soccer, lacrosse, rugby, okay, because we're playing on relatively weak grass fields, I mean, they'll be lucky to get half a season in. We didn't open the fields officially until the 5th of May, or did that get pushed back further, Ann?
It actually got pushed back a little bit further than that because we had another snow.
Yeah.
It was the week after that.
I thought that's what ended up happening. It ended up on the 12th. And, you know, again, this is the lack of any, given the weather we have up here, if we're going to have spring sports, we're either going to tear fields up or we're going to put in turf fields, good quality turf fields. And we're, between the high school, the high school is losing it. The youth soccer, or the youth facilities are losing this season. And in other areas around here where they have better facilities and better fields, they are being able to play, and they were able to get on much sooner. And I think this is, potentially a longer term problem. We could have some very wet seasons coming up in front of us, which means come spring, we're going to lose a lot of playing time, and I think we need to think about that as a community. So, my 2 cents.
Any other board member comments?
If I may, water is becoming an increasingly interesting issue and problem. We have an incredible facility in Minnesota called the Freshwater Society out at the end, the extreme western end of Lake Minnetonka. And I was out there with a group a couple of years ago to tour the facility. Somebody asked them, the director asked a question, from the time Jesus walked the earth, do you think there's more water or less water today? And they're 100% certain the answer is exactly the same. The water just moves around. And because so many suburban communities use wells to pump up water from the aquifers, that's getting to be a possible problem. Our city depends on well water. And the society has got a really well done report out called Minnesota's Groundwater. Is Our Use Sustainable? You can read it on the computer, and if you want to print 23 pages, you can print 23 pages, plus some great websites at the back. And it's freshwater at freshwater.org is the website. I think increasingly the city of Edina is going to begin to have questions about water usage, and the park department will play a role in that.
All right, any other board member comments?
Yeah, I'd like to find out if the chair was told by the Grandview Committee that they're looking for a representative for that small area plan.
I received an email notice, and I'm sure Ann has more information, but and it wasn't directly to me as chair, it was just the citywide notice, and it did say those who have served previously are encouraged to continue. So I don't know if you're interested to do that, or what this, if the city, I mean, I'm assuming the city's looking for a representative from our board again.
Yes, that is correct. We are looking for a representative.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Ellen, do we have a volunteer?
Well, here's the thing. I recognize that plan includes a structure that is a city community building, and also in the plan is some other public space. On the plan, it looks like a commons area. And I would like to ask City Council if they want the park board to be actively involved in creating some kind of working group to define what that space would look like, or if they would like that to be put into our strategic planning process and included in that so that it can be defined for the next step. Because from my understanding, I've looked at the mission of the next group, the advisory group that is meeting to continue this process, and defining that piece, that public piece, is not a part of their mission. And so I do think that is something that becomes closer to what we just finalized as our mission statement, and I'm just wondering how City Council would like us to proceed with that.
I'd be more than happy to get some extra feedback on that. My understanding was that we were hoping to put a representative on that advisory committee, and my thought was with the hope that that would bring back the representation to the park board for discussion, but I'd be happy to clarify that.
Yeah, it does not appear that that's the function of that group, which would be to decide the use and purpose of that facility and that space. The mission for that group had to do with a lot of other things, but not particularly the function of that building.
Any other board member comments? All right, staff comments.
I have just a few things for you this evening. The first is to note that Donna Tilsner, our recreation supervisor, officially moved over to the senior center with Sue Weigel's retirement on May 1st. And we have hired a new recreation supervisor. His name is Eric Betcher, and Eric is coming to us from the city of Roseville. And he is going to be starting on May 20th, next Monday. And he is going to specialize in athletics. He'll be doing some other, certainly recreation supervisor duties as well with special events and other programming. But he is going to be our supervisor and responsible for all athletics. So we couldn't be happier to have Eric join our team. I think his background and experience is going to match really well with Edina and our athletic needs. So we're very excited about that. Another exciting note is that the Golf Dome construction officially started today, And we're going to, if it didn't happen today, it'll be happening tomorrow, actually tearing down the accessory building and the old driving deck. So we are underway with that project. We have a community garden grand opening next Monday, the 20th at 6:30 p.m. And the park board and the general public is welcome to attend. So I hope to see some of you at that event. The Aquatic Center is opening on Saturday, June 8th, and it's hard to believe it's almost June already, but before we know it, we'll have water in the pool and lots of activity going on. The golf courses, as were noted a little bit earlier, the golf courses and all of our athletic fields are finally open. It's been a long spring. Our park maintenance team is working really, really hard to try to get everything up and running. It's pretty much been determined that we're about a month behind schedule for everything. So if you're seeing some things a little bit delayed in the parks, that would be why, but we're doing our best to try to catch up. Another June happening is the Centennial Lakes Farmers Market. That'll be starting on June 13th, and it'll run through the end of September. And that is from 3 until 7 o'clock. And as I mentioned earlier, I will be making a report to you in June regarding the athletic field recommendation and a report on the recommendation for a sports dome.
Thank you.
That's all I have.
Any questions? All right. There's no further business on the agenda, so I move we adjourn.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right. Go enjoy a park on this hot day.